There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't argue, it doesn't explain, and it doesn't beg. It just walks away in silence. When you go quiet after being rejected, you send a message louder than anything you could ever say. It's not angry, it's not emotional, it's not dramatic, it's just absent. And that absence, your silence, speaks volumes. Because without even trying, you've changed the dynamic. You've taken back your power. See, he thought he had the upper hand. Not necessarily in a cruel way, but in his mind, he was in control of the story. He said he wasn't ready, or that he needed space, or that he just didn't feel it the same way. And you, being the open-hearted, emotionally intelligent person you are, respected that. You didn't beg, you didn't plead, you just stopped, you went silent. And in that silence, everything changed, because he didn't expect that. He thought you'd still be there liking his posts, orbiting quietly, waiting. But when you didn't, it unsettled him. When you go quiet, something strange happens. He expected relief. He thought the break would give him peace. But what he got instead was a void, a silence that echoed. That silence forces him to face himself. It holds up a mirror to his own choices. Because now there's no one checking in, no one validating him, no one making him feel wanted. It's not revenge. It's not a power play. It's self-respect in motion. When you pull away, you shatter the script he expected. Most men assume that after rejection, a woman will chase, to prove, to fix, to explain. But when you don't, when you just disappear, that's when confusion sets in. He starts to question, is she ever that into me? Did I misread how much she cared? Is she already over me? It's not the loss of you that shakes him first. It's the loss of control. He realizes you're not predictable. You're not waiting around, and that makes you unforgettable. Silence after rejection creates mystery, and mystery creates reflection. When you stop talking, he starts thinking deeply. He replays every message, every moment, wondering if he missed something. Your silence becomes a mirror that shows him what he lost. And while he's stuck wondering, you're healing, you're rebuilding, you're evolving into a stronger, more self-assured version of yourself. Your quiet says, I know my worth. I don't need to explain it. This passage captures a profound truth about emotional strength, self-respect, and the psychology of attraction. It's about the quiet, unshakable confidence that comes when you stop seeking validation from someone who doesn't recognize your worth. When it says, silence isn't emptiness, it's power, it means that stepping back, choosing not to react, and maintaining your composure doesn't mean you've given up. Instead, it means you're exercising emotional control, the kind of control that commands respect. In most emotional situations, especially those involving rejection, people expect a reaction. They expect explanations, questions, or even attempts to fix what went wrong. That's the natural instinct, to chase clarity, to prove your value, to regain connection. But when you resist that urge, when you decide not to chase, you do something incredibly powerful. You break the pattern. You show that you're capable of walking away, not out of pride, but because you know what you deserve. This kind of silence becomes magnetic. It's not about manipulation or mind games. It's about mystery. When you stop chasing, you shift from being predictable to being intriguing. People are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand. Your silence creates curiosity in his mind. He begins to wonder, why isn't she reacting? Why isn't she reaching out? Has she really not care? Has she already moved on? That uncertainty forces him to reflect, not on you, but on himself. He starts questioning his own choices, his own feelings, and his own behavior. What's truly powerful here is that silence forces space for introspection. It becomes the mirror in which he sees what he's lost. Because when you were available, texting, explaining, reaching out, he could take that attention for granted. But once it's gone, once your voice disappears from his daily life, he feels the emptiness that his decision created. That's when your absence becomes your presence. It lingers, echoing in the quiet moments when he least expects it. The phrase, it's the sound of emotional control, means that silence communicates maturity. It shows that you're not ruled by impulses or by the need to be validated. You understand that not every situation requires a reaction, and not every rejection needs to be fought against. True confidence isn't loud, it's calm, it's steady. It's knowing your worth so deeply that someone else's inability to see it doesn't shake you. When you reach that state of calm detachment, something shifts in how others see you. You stop being the person trying to prove yourself, and instead, you become the one who values herself enough to walk away quietly. That energy, unbothered, grounded, self-assured, is incredibly attractive because it's rare. Most people react emotionally, so when you don't, you stand out. You project emotional independence, which signals that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's validation. The lines, "If you can't see my value, I won't spend my time proving it," is the heart of this message. It's a declaration of self-respect. It means you understand that convincing someone to love or choose you is a losing game, because love that needs convincing isn't real love. It's negotiation. And you're done negotiating your worth. You've chosen to place your time, your energy, and your heart in the hands of someone who will recognize their value without needing an explanation. Ironically, it's that very choice, your refusal to chase, that often makes him see your worth more clearly. Because when you step back, you give him contrast. He begins to notice the difference between your presence and your absence. He starts realizing what your energy added to his life, the peace, the attention, the emotional warmth that's now missing. The silence you created forces him to confront what life feels like without you. And that's when the regret often starts to form, not because you manipulated him, but because you respected yourself enough not to beg. Ultimately, this passage isn't about him at all. It's about you. It's about finding your peace in letting go. It's about understanding that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that you don't need to prove anything to anyone who couldn't see your value the first time. The world doesn't reward desperation. It rewards those who know when to walk away. Your silence says everything that words never could. It says you're strong, grounded, and capable of moving forward without validation. It says you understand your worth so deeply that you'd rather be alone than misunderstood. And that, in the end, is what makes you unforgettable. This passage reveals a deep truth about human behavior and emotional maturity. It reframes rejection from something personal and painful into something that often has little to do with your worth at all. When someone rejects you, it's natural to internalize it, to believe that you weren't enough, that something about you was lacking. But in reality, rejection usually says more about the other person's emotional state than it does about your value. It's not about who you are, it's about where they are, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. When the passage says, rejection isn't about you, it's about him, it's pointing out that people reject others for reasons that go far beyond compatibility or attraction. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of commitment, fear of vulnerability, fear of being hurt again. Other times it's timing. They might not be ready for the depth or consistency that a genuine connection requires. They could be emotionally unavailable, burdened by past experiences, or unsure of themselves. Whatever the reason, their decision often stems from their own inner world, not your inadequacy. But when you react to rejection with silence, something powerful happens. Instead of trying to convince him, instead of explaining yourself or begging for clarity, you choose composure. And in that stillness, you create space, not just for yourself, but for him to feel the weight of his own choice. That's what it means when the text says, when you stay silent, he starts to reflect. Silence removes the noise. It removes the distraction of back and forth explanations or emotional outbursts. Without those, he's left alone with his thoughts. Reflection is an uncomfortable thing for most people, especially for someone who's used to feeling in control. At first, he might feel relief after rejecting you, thinking he made the right decision, that he can move on freely. But as time passes and your voice, your presence, and your energy disappear, that relief often turns into something else, emptiness. That's that vacuum the passage refers to. Your absence becomes a mirror that forces him to look inward. It makes him question his motives and his feelings. He starts to wonder if he made a mistake. Was his decision based on fear instead of logic? Did he misjudge your connection? Did he take your kindness or effort for granted? That uncertainty begins to eat at him, not because you're punishing him, but because silence offers no reassurance. When someone expects a reaction and gets none, it unsettles them. It challenges their sense of control. Most people are more comfortable dealing with anger or tears because those emotions are predictable. They confirm that you still care. But when you respond with nothing, that's what lingers. That's what creates doubt. The line, "Hey expects tears or anger," instead he gets nothing, and that nothing eats at him, beautifully captures this psychological shift. Silence is not indifference, it's strength disguised as restraint. It shows that you're not seeking closure from him, you're giving closure to yourself. It tells him, without words, that you've accepted what happened and are moving forward with dignity. That kind of maturity can be disarming. It forces him to confront not only the consequences of his decision, but also the emotional stability you possess. You see, when you react emotionally, he still holds the power. He knows you're still affected, still invested. But when you walk away calmly, that dynamic flips. You become the one in control, not because you're playing games, but because you've detached your self-worth from his approval. That's when he realizes that rejection didn't diminish you, it revealed your strength. The final line, "You're no longer the rejected one. You're the one who walked away with grace," encapsulates the transformation that happens when you choose silence over reaction. You stop being defined by the rejection and instead become defined by your response to it. Grace isn't weakness, it's emotional intelligence. It's the ability to hold your head high, to maintain your peace, and to trust that the right connections don't require persuasion. Walking away with grace means you refuse to let someone else's decision poison your self-image. It means understanding that rejection isn't failure, it's redirection. It's life steering you away from someone who couldn't meet you at your level of readiness or emotional depth. And when you accept that, you shift from victim to victor. The silence you maintain after rejection is a quiet declaration that says, "I know my worth, and I won't chase anyone who doesn't recognize it." That level of calm confidence is what often triggers regret in the other person. Not because you tried to make them regret it, but because your peace exposes their chaos. It highlights the contrast between your maturity and their confusion. Ultimately, the passage isn't about changing how he feels. It's about changing how you see yourself. It's about understanding that walking away doesn't mean losing. It means choosing yourself over someone who couldn't choose you. The vacuum your silence creates isn't just something he feels. It's also the space in which you begin to heal, grow, and realign with your self-worth. Rejection may close a door, but silence opens one within you, a door to self-respect, inner peace, and the realization that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Because in that stillness, you reclaim your energy, your dignity, and your power, and that's something no one can ever take away. This passage speaks to the quiet transformation that happens when you choose peace over reaction, healing over chasing, and self-respect over validation. It's about understanding that silence, when used with intention, isn't a sign of weakness or indifference. It's a reflection of strength, maturity, and emotional evolution. When it says, your silence isn't weakness, it's control, it's challenging one of the biggest misconceptions people have about walking away quietly. Many assume that silence means surrender, that by not fighting, explaining, or pleading, you've given up. But true control isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. Control is choosing not to let your emotions dictate your actions. It's knowing you could reach out, you could argue, you could try to make them see your worth, but you don't because you understand that your peace is more valuable than their attention. That kind of restraint takes strength. It's not easy to stay silent when you care deeply. It's not easy to hold back when your mind is filled with questions, when your heart still aches, when the closure you crave never came. But in that silence, you reclaim your power. You stop outsourcing your sense of worth to someone else's choices. You learn that not everything deserves your reaction, and that sometimes the greatest display of self-control is the ability to walk away without needing to explain yourself. When the passage continues, it's self-respect in its purest form. It highlights that silence is more than just composure, it's a boundary. It's you saying, "I will not lower my energy to beg for what should come freely." Self-respect isn't about arrogance, it's about alignment. It's knowing that what's meant for you won't require chasing or convincing. It's refusing to participate in dynamics that make you question your own value. Then comes the powerful shift. You're not waiting for him to come back. You're rebuilding yourself. This is the heart of healing. Many people stay emotionally stuck after rejection because they keep their focus on the other person, wondering if they'll return, if they'll regret it, if they'll realize what they lost. But waiting keeps you frozen in time. It traps you in a moment that no longer exists. Rebuilding, on the other hand, moves you forward. It's the process of rediscovering yourself, your joy, your purpose, your independence, without tying them to anyone else. Rebuilding means you start nurturing the parts of yourself that were neglected while you were busy giving your energy to someone who didn't reciprocate. It's waking up one day and realizing that you're not as sad as you were before. It's finding peace in your own company. It's rediscovering your confidence, your laughter, your strength. And with each small act of healing, you evolve into a more resilient, self-assured version of yourself. That's why the line, "You're not the same person he rejected," is so powerful. The rejection that once broke you also became the catalyst for your growth. You've learned to set boundaries, to listen to your intuition, to honor your emotions without letting them control you. You've developed emotional depth, the kind that only comes from pain transformed into wisdom. You're no longer operating from need or insecurity, you're moving from wholeness. So when it says, "Vaif If he ever does return, he's not coming back to the same version of you. It means that your silence has changed you. You're no longer the person who tolerated mixed signals or doubted your worth. You've become stronger, more grounded, and more self-aware. The dynamic has shifted completely. If he comes back, he's not meeting the woman who needed closure. He's meeting the woman who gave it to herself. That realization alone is incredibly empowering. It means you've taken the pain and turned it into purpose. You no longer crave validation because you've already validated yourself. You've learned that your worth doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's ability to see it. That's the ultimate transformation, turning heartbreak into self-mastery. Finally, the passage ends with a truth that ties it all together, Faf. Silence gave you space to heal, and that healing is your real power. Silence is not just an absence of sound, it's the environment where growth happens. When you stop reaching out, stop explaining, stop chasing, you create space. And in that space, you finally have the freedom to hear your own voice again. You reconnect with yourself on a deeper level, your needs, your goals, your peace. Healing is never loud. It doesn't happen in grand gestures or dramatic moments. It happens quietly, in the small, steady acts of self-care, forgiveness, and self-discovery. It's realizing that your peace no longer depends on anyone else's presence or approval. That realization is power in its purest form. In the end, silence becomes more than just a response. It becomes your reset. It's the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. It's where heartbreak turns into wisdom and loss turns into liberation. Your silence isn't about ignoring him. It's about choosing you. It's the moment you stop chasing closure and start creating peace. And when you reach that point, you understand the deeper message behind this passage, that true strength doesn't roar, it whispers. It doesn't fight to be seen, it stands still, calm and certain. Because when you've healed, you don't need to be loud to be powerful. Your peace speaks for you. Here's the truth: rejection doesn't define you. Your response does. When you respond with silence, dignity, and strength, you communicate something rare: that your worth was never up for debate. Let him feel the silence. Let him sit in the space where your energy used to be. Because that silence, that's not punishment. That's you moving on with peace, power, and grace. And sometimes the loudest thing you'll ever say is nothing at all.